Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dr. Curtis Reads. This is my second episode. I look a little bit different this week, new glasses. I look a little bit like a 1950s NASA rocket scientist, but they work really well. I can see better than ever before, so they're great. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd probably go for the laser eye surgery, but not with this pay grade, maybe in future times. But contact lenses also suit me well. But it's nice to have a nice pair of glasses for reading, for seeing, for everything. I'm a little bit like a bat without them. And I'm wearing my keffiyeh too, so this is the Palestinian scarf. And I actually got mine when I was in Amman earlier this year with my girlfriend in Jordan. A wonderful city to visit. Lots of Palestinian diaspora there too. Today we'll be talking about a book that I just recently read that I really enjoyed. I bought it at the Osiander, which is the main bookstore in Stuttgart. I've been kind of eyeing it for a while, and that is last year's The Eyes of Gaza by Plestia Alaqad. It's about a female Palestinian journalist based in Gaza during the time when Israel responded to the September 7th attacks in 2023, and her time there, a few months that she was there before it became too unstable and chaotic, and she unfortunately had to leave too. But it was really interesting to see from this perspective too, because you hear a lot about it through the media too. A lot of times it's very Israel focused. This is actually from the Palestinian perspective, very humanizing portrait too. So a lot of times the media is like, oh, everyone's Hamas too, and most Palestinians are really good people. They're very innocent. I thought it was really well done how she kind of chronicled it too. She's based in Australia or Lebanon now. Unfortunately, as I mentioned too, I think by November, unfortunately, she had to leave the country too. And as I said too, it looks at the aftermath of the October 7th attacks from the Palestinian perspective. So just to recap, most of you probably know, on October 7th, Hamas launched an attack from Gaza and killed many Palestinian or Israelis, um, in the Israel territory. And I think what's really interesting too is this book is from a female perspective too. A lot of times, if you go to Palestine too, it's usually very homosocial. You have a lot of male friends too, but you don't really hear from the women as much. So for me, I think it was very eye-opening to hear from a female journalist, which was really great. And I think she had a lot to say too. It felt very hopeful and very inspiring and also very optimistic. And to be optimistic in this time, I think is really commendable and admirable too. Sometimes it feels like there's not a lot to be optimistic about with a lot of the world events today, but I think Plestia does an amazing job with this too. And I think in terms of resistance too, the Palestinian people are so strong and resilient too. They've been fighting back against the Nakba since the 40s, even earlier, I would say. And I think writing kind of functions as this really strong form of resilience and resistance to the occupation that is ongoing too. And obviously, I think Anne Frank's diary is kind of an interesting companion piece to this text as well too. We both had these two young girls. I think Plestia was 17 when she started writing in 2023. We had these young girls writing about these changing worlds that they're living in, and the escalating kind of genocide taking place. I think as a writer, I think Plestia is a little bit more self-conscious about the world that she lives in, the perpetrators of the genocide. So it's the Israeli occupying force, and I think literature gives them a voice and provides them with a medium to speak out, which I think is really important too, because when things are changing on a day-to-day basis, you're constantly getting bombed, you're constantly getting attacked, your family is constantly under threat. It's really hard to find kind of stable mediums to convey yourself too. A lot of Palestinian influencers have been using cooking videos on Instagram too, but with the genocide and the famine taking place, I wouldn't even call it famine, I call it starvation. They don't really have any source material to make cooking videos. So I think this kind of diary style approach is really important too for conveying kind of the human aspect of it, but also kind of generating empathy too, recognizing that these people are just trying to live their everyday lives too, and they've been kind of circumvented from doing that for decades, if not longer. And I think really important to recognize the Palestinians too as good, kind of mostly innocent people too, and most are not Hamas. Most are generous, kind-hearted people. They don't have much, but they'll give you everything they have. There's a quote in the book too that I wanted to share, and Plestia writes, a family I just met there who have lost everything to themselves want to share with me everything they had. It just sums up the Palestinian people in one gesture too. And I can say, having been to Palestine myself in 2022, so before the chaos of October 7th happened, I'll talk about that later too, my own experiences and how I was kind of personally affected by that book and what I saw when I was in West Bank. Fortunately, I didn't go to Gaza. Kind of wish I did. My friend I was visiting a British friend in Jerusalem who was working at the university, and it was the Jewish holiday on the weekend. So he said, "Well, everything's closed. Why don't we go to West Bank because the Arabs are still open for business?" And it was the best decision I ever made. I learned a lot. Even just one day can kind of really change your worldview on things and how you see the world. Um, so yeah, going back to I think Anne Frank versus Plestia's account too. I think Plestia is a lot more aware of the world she lives in. As I said, the perpetrators of the genocide, and unfortunately, a more familiarity with death. I think Anne Frank is quite naive about her world, which is understandable. She's a young girl who is, naive to kind of the evil machinations of the Nazi regime. And I think for Palestinians, and I think most people who support Palestine realize that the Nakba never ended for them. So the Nakba refers to an event in 1948 where the Israelis it's ethnic cleansing, so they drove out much of Palestinians. They took over 80% of Palestinian territory, and it's been kind of getting worse and worse with the coming decades. I think the October 7th attacks really escalated what was going on too. So now, unfortunately, in Gaza, you see them kind of put into this almost kind of prison or concentration camp. In the West Bank, you have Israeli settlers who are kind of throwing rocks, killing people. Just the other day, they killed an American Palestinian who was visiting his family in West Bank too, and he was beaten to death for standing up, trying to protect his home too. And nobody kind of controls what's going on in West Bank or in Gaza too. I mean, Israel acts kind of without impunity too. So I think the world really needs to step in and actually do something, just rather than paying lip service to Israel, because obviously this is not okay. And the future of a whole kind of bunch of people, the Palestinian people, depends on the West putting their act together too. But obviously it's really showing kind of the West's true colors, I think, this whole event too. And unfortunately, the Palestinians have to suffer as the victims from this too. And I think the problem too is Western media focuses mostly on Israel and Israeli perspectives, and they kind of marginalize the Palestinians as kind of this others, or as Hamas too, which is frankly I think quite racist. And there's a Israeli historian who's very pro-Palestinian, known for his Palestinian activism. He wrote several good books detailing the history of persecution of the Palestinian peoples in Palestine. Ilan Pape, I was fortunate enough to meet him a couple months ago, and he said, what Hamas did was wrong, but if we were constantly bombed and forced against the wall, how would we respond to Israel too? So it doesn't make what things like Hamas do, but Hamas was not just monstrous beings. It's a lot of young people who were kind of radicalized, unfortunately, and they did horrific things too. But if in that same situation too, how would we have responded to? And this kind of, it doesn't obviously sympathize with any of that stuff, but this book is really great because it kind of creates empathy. It shows you that these are people too, and that these are people, mostly innocent people. They're just trying to survive, go through the day-to-day lives. They didn't always live in ruins. They had a beautiful, rich city before October 7th, and unfortunately, Israel and this kind of fascistic government has destroyed all of that too, and it's getting worse by the day. So it's very heartbreaking to know that Plestia had to leave her beloved country or state, so that because of what was going on. So I think her role too as a journalist gives her access to information and shared experiences of trauma, displacement, fears of death, things that we wouldn't really have access to otherwise. So I think it's really great, to have someone who's a woman, and also B, who's a journalist, and C, who's Palestinian, telling the story too. So it really changes our perspective. It allows us to think about new perspectives. It gets us to ask questions too. It's like, how are we interacting with the media? Why is the media slanted this way? And what about these people? Why don't their voices matter as much as everyone else too? So I think the thing for me, Palestinian voices matter too. I think everyone's lives should be treated equally, and I think this book really draws attention to that too. Just the inequality between people. Basically, Israelis playing Israeli lives more than Palestinian lives, and that's not okay. Every life's kind of should be equal too. And I think October 7th too, in this context, kind of um, attack the attacks are kind of pretext for Israel to escalate this genocide and reduce Gaza to rubble and leave them with nothing. And it reminded me of my own trip, as I said, to West Bank a few years ago in the summer of 2022. I went to Bethlehem and Hebron. Hebron's a very historic city. Bethlehem, very historic too, as probably the birthplace of Jesus, if Jesus existed. But really fascinating place to visit. And thankfully, it was before a lot of it was subject to ruin, but you could see there was kind of a electricity in there that wasn't quite good. There was a negative energy. A lot of the way that the Israelis were treating Palestinians at the checkpoints, and I saw firsthand a lot of the racial profiling taking place. We went to my British friend and I. We went to who's also agnostic. We went to Jesus's grotto, his birthplace. There's a little cave in the ground. It's really cool in Bethlehem, and we met two Palestinian brothers there, and they offered to drive us to their hometown, Hebron, which is 20 minutes away. I think everything's 20 minutes away in Palestine, which is great too. It's very easy to get to. And we said, I wasn't used to this kind of hospitality. I thought, maybe there's a string attached. And I think they just wanted to show us their perspective, their ways of living too. And so we said yes. They were great. They paid for everything. They showed us their family home. They showed us the marketplace. They tried to show us their mosque too that they went to, the beautiful mosque in Hebron, very very famous in the Abrahamic faith too. This is where biblical Abraham came from. And unfortunately, the mosque was closed by the time we got there. But there's a lot of images in my mind that kind of stayed with me too. So meeting my friend too, seeing his beautiful home, and in the distance you could see kind of the illegal Israeli settlements that are being built. Again, things like the UN aren't really doing anything about that. Which what's the point of having the UN if they can't do that? And one image really stuck in my mind too, and it was a little boy, and he was riding a bicycle in the middle of the street, but the bicycle had flat tires. In the market too, they had like two boys bringing a donkey along with a little stick, and really, really generous people. They offered us free candy and free drinks, and my friends refused to let me pay for anything too. They made sure we got back to edge of West Bank with no problems too. Maybe it would have been different. I don't think I would have had that experience, obviously, if I was Jewish, or maybe not as a woman too, but again, maybe that's where that white privilege comes in. But I was very fortunate to have that experience. I have nothing but positive things to say. Everyone was really kind to me there. I learned a lot about the world. I learned a lot about the culture too. Really, really good kind of people. And it was a kind of hospitality that inspired me. It was a hospitality I've never seen before. And we kind of see that with this book too. As in the quote I mentioned, she meets this family who's lost everything, and they have nothing, but they offer her everything they can to. And I think a lot of Palestinians, they don't have much, especially the lower class ones, but they'll give you the world. They'll share everything with you. They'll share the plate with you, and I think that's amazing and inspiring. And I think it's a lot closer to the holy teachings than a lot of world leaders these days. And I think it showed me too how firsthand how Palestinians are racially profiled by the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces too, and the racial and social inequality that they face too. But they're, as I said before, they're incredibly resourceful and strong people. I think that's really commendable. And I also remember kind of banners of Arafat everywhere. So there was a lot of Arafat all over the West Bank. And I have kind of mixed feelings about Arafat, but maybe I'll say that for another video too. But I think seeing it really kind of makes you believe, because when you see something, you never kind of see the same way again too. So I'm very supportive of a free Palestine, and I hope that there's a day that the quality of life improves for them and they can be treated as equals too. But unfortunately, I think things will get a lot worse before they can get better too. And as this book kind of suggests too, I think things are getting worse by the time she has to leave Gaza too. And you feel like you're an outsider in Israel if you're there too. I think that's one thing I noticed too. I actually missed my flight at the Tel Aviv airport coming back too. They were really rude to me overall, I would say, the Israelis, which is really unfortunate. Maybe it was just the people I came across, but I did find overall they felt quite cold and distant and rude. And some of them kind of kept reminding me that I wasn't Jewish. And it's a stark contrast to the way I felt interacting with the Arabs who always made me feel welcome. Oh, you speak beautiful Arabic, and all you know is salam alaikum. But what a contrast. Um, so obviously West Bank experience in the West Bank is very different than Gaza, but they both face this kind of escalating genocide and atrocities from the Israel occupational forces. And I think Plestia does a great job just in the details, just what she observes, her everyday observances too. It's not a scholarly work. It's just a kind of first-hand diary account, and she shows the daily hardships faced by Palestinians in Gaza. Worrying about bombs hitting their flat, rockets coming, not even seeing them, losing their family members, and when you lose a family member, what happens then too? And there's no peace. It's just ongoing too, and the trauma inflicted by worrying about bombs constantly coming and your family members um, getting killed, and to be able to find enough food. There's one part where they go into a shop and they're giving away the last of these cookies and ice cream, and she's so happy to have the cookies and ice cream. And it's a rare treat, and it's things we just take for granted, I think, in the West, too. So the world, unfortunately, I think most of the Western world views kind of Palestinians as statistics because they are Arabs, because they're not white, because they're Palestinians. And I think the West, there is a racism in the West and complacency in their response to Palestine. For me, I feel like Jeremy Corbyn and others too. I feel like something should really be done about this, because I feel like you can't. That's not how to treat people. I think everyone should be treated equally. So we see the genocide is being played out for us in 4K and videos across social media every day, but no one's doing anything about it too. It's shitty. Yeah, well, I know, but let's do something about it too. I mean, I think Greta Thunberg is one of the few people who has actually, tried to make a meaningful systemic change. And I think Israel should be challenged, and we need more Palestinian voices to be heard too. So I think that book, it does really well with that too, allowing these Palestinian voices to be heard, not just the Plestia, but also the community around her, the kind of solidarity between them too. Actually, originally I wanted to show this other book, The Women, which I really love too. It's by Kristen Hanna, but I'll probably show that next time, because I felt like there's a sense of urgency with this Palestine book that needs to be said, especially with the current conditions, which has not gotten any better. A lot of the government there too, the people in the Knesset, Netanyahu and Ben Gvir Smotrich and other kind of fascists in the Knesset are symptomatic of a kind of Zionist poison that has taken hold in the Israeli subconscious. And it's not just these politicians who feel this way, but a lot of everyday people too. Not all Israelis, but a lot of Israelis, and I think the majority of the population has this kind of antagonism towards Palestinians. And I don't know how to fix that. I'd say we kind of denazify it, but I don't know how to fix it. But I think the best way is to kind of speak up about it. I was really inspired by the way that Kneecap and Macklemore and other kind of musicians Bob Vylan have been kind of making a stand about it and trying to show solidarity and support. I wonder if it's enough. I hope it means something, but I thought I'd try to say something as well too. And I think the October 7th attacks have exacerbated the situation, what's going on. But I think the genocide goes back to the Nakba, if not earlier too. And I think nowadays the genocide is more blatant and more explicit now. They don't even have to sugarcoat what's really going on too. Israel knows it, and they can act without impunity. They know they can get away with it. They have all these illegal settlements being built in West Bank, but who's going to stop them from building them too? And the Israeli settlers, they're horrible. They drive around, they smash people's windows. If anyone's watched any of the recent documentaries set in West Bank too, we see people bulldozing schools with children inside too, bulldozing people's homes. Who knows what it's going to be tomorrow too? No transparency, no kind of sense of human decency too. And obviously the IDF continues to kill them, especially children. A lot of the victims here have been children. More than half of the victims in the assault on Gaza were children, according to Plestia too, and I think that's unforgivable. But this is part of the ethnic cleansing that's taking place. But the Israelis want their land because the Palestinian existence is for them an inconvenience too. And I think Plestia's hope and optimism in the book, as I've said, is a shining light. Another reason to kind of read this amazing book. It's very short too. It's only 164 pages, so you could probably read it in one sitting if you can deal with all the trauma and heaviness. And I think even with her home falling to ruins and having to leave it, we are drawn to her heart too. She's a heart that radiates, and you can really feel that energy when you read the book too. And it made me kind of want to do more too. It made me want to kind of keep fighting to free Palestine, as I hope I tried to do. And it stays with you too. There's a very visual aspect to the story too, and I think that's it would make for an interesting documentary too. I don't know if Plestia has a lot of recordings, video recordings from it too. Obviously, it's a very traumatic experience to share it, but I think there's a very visual aspect to the diary entries too, which would make for a compelling documentary experience too. And I mean, she is documenting reality with these entries. So, Plestia Alaqad, The Eyes of Gaza, amazing book. I really liked it too. I'll be coming back again soon with Kristen Hanna probably next time. But yeah, if you want to know more about the situation in Palestine, or if you want kind of a Palestinian oriented focus too, I think this is a really good book. You could probably even use it if you're teaching a class too, just to students to recognize the reality of what's going on in Palestine, to break free from that kind of maybe Israeli oriented Western media bias. And I think it's really fair, very humane, very empathetic, and really kind of open-mindedly told. I think that's really great. So do check it out too if you can. And I'll catch you next time. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and stay cool.